Good morning. Today we are starting chapter 14 and we're going to do it a little bit different than how we've been doing it. We're a little behind in our getting through the book, so I'm changing things up a little so we can go a little bit faster through our chapters so we can get as far as we can before the year is done. So for chapter 14, we're going to go through our key terms like we always do on the first day. And then you'll notice that I also have our chapter comprehension pages coming around. So we are going to be working on the chapter comprehension as we go through the chapter. So that way we're not doing it at the end as a review, because instead of doing a test at the end of this week, we are doing a project. So we will be doing a project at the end of the week. So it is very important that you do well on the chapter comprehension page, because that's showing your knowledge of the chapter. Okay. And it's very important that you do well with the project. Since we don't have a test grade going in for this chapter, we need to show that we can do the work and we understand what we're learning about World War I. So let's look at our key terms. Our first one is World War I. World War I was a war fought from 1914 to 1918, mostly in Europe. And the Middle East. Between the Allies and the Central Powers. So there were two different sides that countries joined. There were the Allied powers and the Central Powers. Does anybody know what side the United States was on? Interesting. The Allies. So we were part of the Allies. We're going to be reading to see who else was an Allied country and who were the Central Powers that we were fighting against. We're going to see how the war started out. It starts out small, grew big to be World War I. Did they call it World War I in the beginning? Garrison?
They called it the Great War.
They called it the Great War. Okay, we didn't know it was going to be the first of two world wars. So they're not going to call it World War I because they didn't know there was going to be a World War II. So they called it the Great War because it was such a big war that all these countries were involved in. So we're going to be reading about that. So the Allies during World War I, and instead of writing it out, I'm just going to do WW1. During World War I, the nations that allied or united against the Central Powers of Europe. Against they included, so we're going to find out who were the Allies. They included Great Britain, France, Russia, yeah, they were on our side for both of the world wars. France, Russia,
They were neutral for half a second.
Yeah. Italy and the United States. Now remember, this is over 100 years ago, so a lot has changed in that time period. So back over 100 years ago, it was Great Britain, France, Russia, Italy, and the United States that all fought together. So the Central Powers during World War One, the nations that fought against the Allies. They included Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. It was a country.
What is it now?
A lot of different countries.
It got broken up, and I think it was broken up after World War One.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see if we hear about what it was broken up into. But just like Austria-Hungary now is the country of Austria and the country of Hungary. Things have changed.
So the Ottoman Empire, from the looks of it, consisted of like Turkey, Saudi Arabia.
Yep. So it'd be in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Probably Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and what else?
And like Iran.
Maybe Iran. So that area was broken up. I don't know off the top of my head exactly which of those Middle Eastern countries came from the Ottoman Empire, but it was that area. Edward? Yes. So what Edward's noticing is that Germany was a central power in World War One. We know that they were an Axis power in World War Two. They called them the Allies and the Axis in World War Two. So it's Central Powers in World War One, Axis in World War Two. Germany was against us in both of those wars. Again, this is so long ago, things have changed. You'll notice Russia was on our side in World War One. In World War Two, they fought with the Allies. And then things changed during the Cold War. So things shift and change. We'll notice some countries got broken up after World War One because they lost. So they got broken up. Things happen. Well, you kind of know who won World War One, right, Anna? Do you think we lost World War One? Well, spoiler. This is something we should all know. The Allies won World War One and World War Two. What? Yes.
The only war we lost was Vietnam. We kind of
no.
lost it in a way.
Technically, Vietnam was a police action, and Korea. It gets the Gulf War. I mean, it gets complicated. It gets complicated. Okay, the war effort. The war effort is the combined effort efforts of those at home as well as those in the military to win a war. So it's not just the military, those fighting overseas, they are not the only ones involved in the war effort. There's a lot happening back home to support them, to help them. So we're going to find out about that war effort for World War One. What did Minnesota do to help the war? What did we do to help us win? we are going to learn about propaganda. This is what our project is going to be on at the end of the week. Propaganda is the organized spreading of information in order to persuade people to adopt a certain position. It typically only presents one point of view. Back in the fall, we had some 6th grade friends that made propaganda posters. Anybody know what they made posters for? Andrea? Student council elections. You were trying to persuade people to vote for you. That was propaganda. You were trying to persuade, trying to get people to say, ooh, I want this person to represent 6th grade. That is propaganda. When you're trying to get people to think your way. When we watch TV, what do you think would be propaganda? When you listen to the radio, what would be propaganda, Sam A? Ads, the commercials. They're trying to get you to want their product versus the other ones. They want you to get their name brand. When you read the newspaper or articles online, what could be propaganda, Andrea?
Coupons?
Well, coupons aren't really propaganda. That's just kind of like a gift. But hey, you want to use that coupon to save money, so you might be tempted to buy one brand over another because you get a coupon. What else is propaganda that we hear in our daily life? Peyton?
The news?
The news. Sometimes news is just based on facts. This happened. There was this accident. Sometimes the news can put their own shift onto things. And they might say, ooh, these people are bad because. So sometimes when you read an article or you listen to a program, you have to ask yourself, are they biased? Are they telling me just the facts? Or are they telling me their opinion? Because that opinion is they're going to try to shift my thinking to think the way that they think. So if you really want just to know what's happening, you need to find those primary sources that tell you just the facts. This is what happened. Not, ooh, I think this about it and I feel this way about it, and these people are awful because. Find the facts and come up with your own opinion. Why do I think this was wrong? So don't just have somebody else spoon feed it to you. Think for yourself. You want to find those primary sources so you can decide what actually happened, what's going on. Don't just read headlines. Don't ever read a headline and think that it's the absolute truth. Headlines are propaganda. They want you to read their article and they want you to believe their way. So if ever you read a headline and you go, whoa, that sounds pretty crazy, usually it is made up. Usually they twist things to get people all upset or excited about something, and it's not really true the way that the headline is making it sound, because they know people aren't going to put in the time to actually read it. They're just going to believe that headline. So you really want to be careful, especially in today's world with social media, and how easy it is to post a meme or to post that headline, there is a lot of propaganda out there for people to try to make you believe what they're saying. Always go to the primary source, find what actually happened, and make up your own mind. All right, patriotism is loyalty to one's country.
What?
Patriotism is loyalty to one's country. You can show your patriotism in lots of different ways. Be patriotic, but it's being loyal to your country. A war bond is a certificate called a bond sold to citizens by a government. In order to help pay for a war. Government has all these people joining up to be soldiers. Soldiers get paid. So they need to be able to pay all of these soldiers. They need to make all of the weapons and all the ammunition for the weapons. When there's a war, they need a lot more than what they needed before. Did you check in at the office when you came? Okay. So they need to be able to pay for it. They need to pay for the food for all of the soldiers, for the gas, for the cars, the jeeps and the tanks and all of that. There's a lot of money that goes into a war, so they need to be able to pay for it. So they sell a certificate or bond to their citizens. The bond is a written promise to repay the buyer the full amount of the selling price with interest on or after a specified date. So I don't have room to write all of that with my marker. It gets too big. So if you want to write the full definition, look at it in the book. Just know that war bond, people pay for it. It's just a paper certificate. You pay the government money for it, and the government is saying, we will pay you back. So after the war, when we're able to make more money, we will pay you back by a certain time.
Scammers.
It's not a scam.
It's not a scam, but it's
They actually do pay it back. It's definitely not a scam.
It's a dangerous transaction for the government because there can be situations where they don't have enough money to pay it back.
Which would be a scam.
So if we were to have lost the war, then there's something called it starts with an R. Now I am blanking. They have to pay back. The person who loses the war has to pay back the countries that win the war, and they owe them money because it's a big cost. So think about if you go to court, you're being sued. If you lose the lawsuit, you have to pay the other side money. If you win, you get paid money. With a war, they have the countries that put all of their money in to fight off the other countries, they want something in return. We put all this money into this, now you owe us. You lost, you owe us money. So that's what Tristan's saying is kind of a dangerous game because that's kind of what happened to Germany. Well, it's not kind of. It is what happened to Germany. They lost World War I, and they had to pay the Allied countries a lot of money. And then they went broke, and they couldn't pay back war bonds. If they had done war bonds in their country, they wouldn't have been able to pay back their citizens because the government had no money. They had to pay all these other countries. And that was a big cause that led into World War II because Germany became so poor, and it was a really bad time for them. And that's how Hitler was able to come into power and take advantage of the feelings of people in the bad place that they were in. Julian.
So wars are just basically bets, kind of.
Yes, sir.
I got money.
I mean, kind of.
It's like,
So it's one country or countries telling another country or countries that what we're doing is right and what you're doing is wrong. So we want to win the war. Usually when America gets involved in a war, it's because democracy is being threatened, because people are being hurt, and we want to help protect them. So we come in and say, what you're doing is wrong. You're treating people poorly. We want to make sure that everybody has their freedom. And the other country is going to say, no, what we're doing is right and what you're saying is wrong. So it's both sides fighting for what they want. So the main reason they go into a war is for their own personal beliefs on it. The Korean War, we wanted to stop the spread of communism with North Korea and South Korea. Vietnam, we wanted to stop the spread of communism, and we wanted to free the people there to have a democracy. So there's a lot of that happens, and the people that lose do end up paying money. You don't go to war because you want money. You go to war for the reasons, like I'm saying, it could be Russia is at war with Ukraine because they want that land back. Because Ukraine became their own country in the 90s. 90, I want to say 98.
I think it's
98. So they want Ukraine back because they want that land. They want to be bigger, and they want to be a bigger power. So they're not going to war against Ukraine because they want Ukraine to pay them. They want the land. So it all depends on what it is that they want. Garrison. Yes, Edward. Yes. Yes. When the United States is in a war, we want to help that country after the war be a strong country. So we help support them, and we help them get their democracy set up. Yes. All right, we have one more. The Commission of Public Safety, the CPS. It is a state agency. That existed only during World War I. So this is an agency that was only around during World War I. Peyton, do you need to set up the side table? Okay. Its role was to oversee the war effort in Minnesota. So it was a Minnesota agency. So it was a state agency. This is a Minnesota thing that was only around during World War I to help us support the war effort. Okay, now we have our chapter comprehension. We're going to read just the introduction, and that is the first part of our chapter comprehension. So it's that first question: how could friendly alliances between countries unexpectedly help cause war? So let's start on page 289. World War I. In April of 1917, the United States joined a war that many countries in Europe had been fighting since 1914. So the United States didn't join until 1917. This war had already been going on for 3 years. At this time, it was just war. It wasn't World War I because not all the countries were in it yet. But the war gets bigger and bigger as more countries get involved. Minnesotans participated in a variety of ways. Hear about a state agency established in response to fears about people's safety. one country's contribution to the war effort, and finally, a celebration held in Minneapolis the night the war ended. In the early 1900s, countries such as France, England, Russia, Germany, and Austria-Hungary all wanted to be the most powerful nation in Europe. So it started off as just a European war. We are not a part of Europe. We're over the ocean. So we were just kind of sitting back, letting them battle it out, saying, not quite liking what's happening over there, but we're going to stay out of it. This is their deal. They're fighting to see who's the most powerful. What was that?
There's so many wars in European history. It's kind of depressing.
Well, that's because Europe's been around a lot longer. There's not going to be as many wars in American history because America started way after Europe started.
There's some wars that just like don't make sense.
Oh yeah.
Like the War of the Bucket.
Yeah, the majority of wars could be avoided if people. Okay, let's finish this. Shh. And stop. They competed to gather the most resources and build the largest empire by controlling other countries around the world. They also competed to build alliances or friendly associations with some of their neighbors. The main idea of the alliance system was simple. If one nation was attacked by another nation, its allies would come to its defense. It was a form of self-protection. The system helped keep Europe at peace for many years. We're not going to attack the small country because they're friends with these big countries, and we know we would have to fight the big countries. Unfortunately, the alliance system could also make conflicts bigger. A small fight between two countries could quickly grow into a large war involving many countries once all the allies became involved. In 1914, this complicated web of alliance helped bring about the Great War, World War I. So you need to write out your answer. We are going to use complete sentences. Sorry, I should have told us that before we started writing. Because we're not doing a final test, I do want complete sentences on our comprehension pages. Oh my, we've already talked about this. Oh, this is before that.
All right then.
So, for my friends who weren't having their listening ears on when we were passing out the papers, we are doing key terms, and we are doing our chapter comprehension pages as we go through the chapter. We're doing things differently this chapter because we're going to take this chapter in just a week instead of 2 weeks. We want to get through more chapters before the end of the year so we can learn as much as we can about Minnesota history. So instead of doing a test at the end of this chapter, we are going to do a project. And if you were listening during the key terms, I said our project was going to be based on propaganda. So we will be doing a project.
By yourself.
Oh, we will talk about it when we get to it. Oh, Paul, thanks, Paul. Way to be looking out for him. So, Colin, we did the key terms, and then we just read the introduction to our chapter, and we did the first question, that introduction question on the chapter comprehension. As we do the readings this next few days, we're going to finish this chapter by Wednesday. So we'll do some reading tomorrow and some reading on Wednesday. We will be finishing our chapter comprehension questions each day. We're going to do the parts that we read. Then Thursday we will find out what our project is going to be. We're going to read the investigation at the end of the chapter and do, we'll get our project assignment that will be due on Monday. So with that, we will say goodbye to our friends at home. We hope you are well, and we hope to see you soon.